Hey everybody, Joann Rechtine here from the Loose Leash Academy in Black Mountain, North Carolina. I'm coming to you today to talk to you a little bit about a new workshop that we have coming up. It's called The Power of Choice and How It Can Help Decrease Stress in Dogs. We're offering it for the first time on September 12th and 13th, and it's all going to be done virtually. Our two instructors are Dr. Kristina Spaulding and Irith Bloom. It's going to be a weekend of fantastic learning to teach you about how powerful it can be to give your dogs choices. Dr. Spaulding's going to take us through the science of it all, and then Irith is going to give us the practical applications that we can use as either dog owners or in our training practices to help our clients who have dogs who are stressed out and may have behavior issues. So if you're looking for a weekend to totally geek out, learn some scientific stuff, and then learn some really cool practical applications that you can take home with you or implement in your training practices, please join us on September 12th and 13th. We have a few working spots left, about half of them are taken, and now we have a little video for you to give you a taste of what you're going to learn that weekend. Thanks.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Kristina Spaulding. We're going to start off today by talking a little bit about enrichment. Enrichment is something we spend a lot of time discussing in the dog world, and for good reason. The question is, what can science tell us about the benefits of enrichment? This is a long discussion, and we only have a little time in this video, so today I'm just going to focus on one thing. But first, let me give you a little background. Did you know that animals, like people, can be pessimistic or optimistic? If they're pessimistic, that means that they tend to anticipate punishment in new or uncertain situations. If they're optimistic, that means that they tend to anticipate reinforcement in new or uncertain situations. This has obvious welfare implications. Of course, we want our animals to anticipate reinforcement rather than punishment. And this is where enrichment comes in. Several studies have shown that enrichment can make animals more optimistic. This is great news because it means we have some ability to influence the way the animals around us view their world, which is really exciting. So in a moment, you're going to run a little experiment with your dog to determine what kinds of food they prefer. What does this have to do with enrichment? What it does is it gives them some degree of control over their environment, and it turns out that that control is critically important to their well-being for all kinds of reasons. So now I'm going to shoot it over to Irith, and she's going to talk to you about how to set up this preference test.
Hi, my name is Irith Bloom, and along with Dr. Kristina Spaulding, I'm going to be presenting on the power of choice, how it can decrease stress in dogs, in just a couple of months. Now, you've just heard Dr. Spaulding talking about enrichment and how it can improve animals' lives and even make them more optimistic. So we thought it would be fun to give you a tiny little enrichment task where you give your dogs an opportunity to express an opinion and tell you what their choice is. Being able to make choices in itself is a fairly enriching thing for a dog to be able to do. So we're going to have you start a tiny experiment. It's not exactly rigorous. It's really not, we would need to do a lot more to make it stand up for like research paper purposes, but just a tiny little experiment for you and your dog. What you're going to need for the experiment is a box that's at least a foot long, ideally. I have plenty of boxes around my house right now, what with Amazon deliveries and all of that. So this box is about 15 inches long. You're going to need a pen and some paper. And you're going to need 2 different types of treats. Now, I happen to be working with Wesley. He is a very special breed. He's a stuffed toy. And stuffed toy dogs have different tastes than most other breeds of dogs. And Wesley happens to think that red measuring tape and black, this is a road ID, if anyone knows what that is, road IDs are very tempting treats. So my 2 treats that I'm going to be using happen to be measuring tape and a road ID. And since Wesley won't actually be swallowing them, I'm just going to keep using the same treats over and over. But you're going to want to prepare at least 4 of each type of treat for your dog. So again, you're going to need a box that's at least 12 inches long, a piece of paper, a pen, and 2 types of treats, at least 4 pieces of each. Why don't you go get that organized, and I'll meet back with you again in a minute. All right, I'm going to assume you have everything you need. You can see I have my box, I have my 2 types of treats, and here's Wesley, who's being a very, very, very good dog right now. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to take the box and position it between you and your dog. Now, I'm using a couch because Wesley's a very small dog, but you could do this on the floor if you have a larger dog. I want you on one side of the box with the opening of the box facing towards you, and the dog on the other side of the box. Our idea here is to make sure that the dog can't see what you're doing under the box as you're doing it. Now, if you have a dog who's really inquisitive and he's going to come around the corner and kind of get in your way or just poke his nose in there or push the box from the other side, you could always tether him, or you could confine him temporarily and then let him out after you've set up your box and your treats. So what you're going to do, now again, remember, I'm going to push Wesley a little bit back so you can see what I'm doing, but he can't. You're going to take each one of your treats. We're going to call one treat A and one treat B, just for the sake of the argument. You're going to put them on the floor. You're doing all of this behind the box so that Wesley can't see, and then you're going to put the box over them so that he still can't see what's under there. And then you're going to bring your dog into the picture. Now, we've placed these 2 treats far apart under the box so that they're not right next to each other, so that when the dog sees them, they're not exactly next to each other. We're going to try to put them as far apart as we can, which is why a big box. So I've got about a foot distance now between my treats. And once I'm ready, I'm going to get my pad of paper because I'm ready to write, and I'm going to lift up the box and say, release. And Wesley's going to come over, and he's going to go, oh, this is really good. And he's going to take the red treat. I told you I had funny tasting treats. And he's going to go and eat his treat. And I'm going to take the other treat away. Okay, now what am I going to do? I'm going to write down. The red treat was A, right? So I'm going to say A. Or I could write red if I prefer. So trial 1, you all get to see how hideous my handwriting is. A, red. Okay? Now, like I said, Wesley's a very good dog, so I'm not worried that he's going to come and try to steal something. So I'm going to set him up again. I'm going to set my box up again. Now, the last time, I don't know if you noticed, but I put treat A on the side that's closer to the camera and treat B on the side that's farther from the camera. This time, I'm going to reverse it. Why am I going to reverse it? Because I need to test, did Wesley choose the red treat because he likes the red treat, or does Wesley just tend to go in this direction? And I need to know that. Some dogs are right-handed or left-handed, have a tendency to look to the right, look to the left. I want to make sure that I'm accounting for that. So, got my treats, trial 2. I'm going to put my box on top of them. And I'm going to make sure that I've told Wesley to wait. And he's being very good, as you can see. And I'm going to lift up my box. And Wesley comes over, and he grabs the black treat, and he goes over there. And so I take, oh, and he's holding it so well, all by himself. So I take the other treat away, and I'm going to write trial 2, B for black. So now I've got trial 1 and trial 2, right? I'm going to do this 2 more times. Thank you, Wesley. Drop it. And he lets go of it because it's not really food and he doesn't actually eat it. Sorry about that. And I'm going to say, okay, Wesley, stay there for a minute. Okay, now, got my box out. Now, this is where this is not particularly scientific. If we were going to be super scientific, we would do a lot of trials and we would randomize which side the treat is on. But because we're doing sort of a just not so rigorous scientific exercise here, we're going to make it super easy for us as the humans. I'm going to say, okay, first time I put the red treat down, it was on this side, closer to the camera. There it is. Now the black treat's over there, farther from the camera, and I'm going to tip my box over them. Wesley is staying very nicely while I'm doing all of this. And then I'm going to pick up my box and say, release. And Wesley's going to come over and he's going to grab the red treat and run off with the red treat. And I'm going to pick up the black treat, put it away. Oops, that's okay. I guess he had enough of it. And I'm going to write down trial 3, treat A, which is the red treat, right? So there we go. I've got it written down. And I'm going to do this one more time. So we're going to do 4 total repetitions, which isn't a lot of repetitions if we were doing actual science, but is a fun number of repetitions when we're playing with our dog this way. So I put the box up. I've asked Wesley to stay over here. Good boy, stay. And once again, I'm going to put the black treat closer to the camera this time, because last time it was the red treat, right? And I'm going to put the red treat farther from the camera. I'm going to tip the box over my treats. Hang on, I'm rearranging slightly to make it easier for Wesley. And then I'm ready. Release. And I'm going to let Wesley come over, and he grabs the red treat. Oh my gosh! And runs off with it. What a shocker. Did anybody see that coming? I did not see that coming. I pick up my black treat. I put it away. I write down trial 4. And it is A. Red again. Oh my gosh, this is crazy, right? Crazy times with my stuffed toy breed dog. So, what have I learned? Well, when you do this with your dog, you're going to come up with a pattern of which treats the dog took. And I want you to go try this with your dog with 2 different treats. You're going to swap their positions each time. Do 4 repetitions total. Try to take away the second treat if you can while your dog has the first treat. Don't take any risks as you're doing this. Keep yourself safe. If you feel like your dog is going to try to lunge and maybe get your hand in the process, just let him have both treats, but note which treat he takes first. Take those notes and then come back and join me again. Okay, everyone, I hope you had fun and that you have a little sheet of paper now with notes like mine. Now, you're going to have one of a few types of patterns. Basically, you're either going to have a pattern where the dog chose whichever treat was on one side, and that would look like treat A, treat B, treat A, treat B. Or you're going to have a pattern where the dog chose the same treat every time, regardless of the size. That would be treat A, and treat B, 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 right? Or you might have a mixture, like I got with Wesley, where if you'll notice, I have A, B, A. Now, if your dog just chose whichever one was on the right, or on the left for that matter, every single time, then your dog probably doesn't have a strong preference between these 2 treats, or we didn't do enough trials. But if your dog chose one of the treats more often than the other, even if it's only 3 times, like here in my example, where you see there's 1 B, but everything else is A, clearly Wesley prefers the red treat. Well, not clearly, but it looks like Wesley prefers the red treat over the black treat. So now I know what treat he seems to prefer today, for the moment. This is not something that's necessarily going to hold true tomorrow, or even 10 minutes from now, for all I know. But I know that right now, this is his preferred treat.
Hi everyone, Dr. Kristina Spaulding again. So you just ran a test with your dog to determine if they have a preference for one reinforcer over the other. Or perhaps you didn't use a dog and you used another animal. You may have found a clear preference, or perhaps you found no difference. One question that you might have is, are these results constant? So let's examine that by taking a look at some of the learning theories. You're probably familiar with the Premack principle. It states that you can reinforce a low probability behavior with a high probability behavior. So what you do is you observe your animal and you determine how they spend their time rather. For example, you might go out in your backyard with your dog and you may notice that they spend the majority of their time sniffing and they only sometimes look at you. So that would make sniffing the high probability behavior and looking at you the low probability behavior. You can then use access to sniffing as a reinforcer for eye contact, thereby increasing the likelihood of eye contact. But here's the thing. It turns out that Premack doesn't always hold true. There are times when you can use a low probability behavior to reinforce a high probability behavior. This tends to occur when the animal has been prevented from engaging in the low probability behavior for some period of time. So what this tells us is that their preferences can change, and the particular things that are most reinforcing can change over time. There is another learning theory that has attempted to address this by focusing on the idea of each behavior having a baseline. If a behavior falls below baseline, then the animal becomes motivated to engage in that particular behavior. This is called response deprivation theory. So, for example, let's say you gave your dog a preference test between chicken and cheese and they chose the chicken. So you start reinforcing chicken, or rather reinforcing with chicken, and you stop using the cheese. If your dog also likes cheese, then what you may find is that their cheese eating behavior falls below baseline and they therefore become more motivated by the cheese and may end up choosing cheese over chicken in your next preference test. Give you another example with people, if you offered me cheesecake and an apple, I'd probably take the cheesecake. However, if I had been eating a lot of unhealthy food lately, I may choose the apple instead because eating healthy food had fallen below baseline. So keep these things in mind as we send it back over to Irith, and she's going to spend a little bit more time talking to you about the applications and implications of the preference test.
Hi, it's Irith again. I hope you've enjoyed the great information that Dr. Spaulding provided and that you also had fun doing that experiment we ran in the middle. Now, that experiment was an opportunity for us to ask the animals we're working with, which of these two treats do you prefer? Since we're asking what they prefer, we can also call this a preference test. As I mentioned, this wasn't the most rigorous and scientific preference test, but it was an opportunity for the animal to express an opinion and to let us know which treat they preferred. The obvious benefit of running a preference test like this is that we learn about what motivates the animal. And we can then take that information and use it in our training. So if we're asking the animal for a difficult behavior, we can use a reinforcer, a treat, that we know that the dog or other animal really, really likes because they've told us that they really, really like it. And so that's a benefit to us, right? We learn about what motivates the animal. And the better we understand what motivates the animal, the easier it is for us to train and get the behavior that we want. But there's another benefit, a hidden benefit, if you will, to running these preference tests. And that is that when we give the animal an opportunity to choose and to then control what reinforcement they're getting, that is actually a form of enrichment. I know it doesn't seem like much, but being able to say, today I want chicken, not cheese, and then getting chicken for the training session is actually something that does enrich our animals' lives. It gives them a little more control over their environment. It reduces their stress. It makes them happier and hopefully also more optimistic. It may not seem like much, just a little preference test and you get this treat instead of that treat. But if we do enough of these things, the cumulative effect, the additive effect of all these things we do can be quite powerful. Now, at our seminar, we are going to be discussing a lot of different things you can do to increase choice and control and provide your animals with more enrichment. We really hope that you will join us there. But in the meantime, for those of you who are looking to do a little bonus exercise, here's my suggestion for you. Take whatever treat your animal told you he or she preferred. Use that for your training for every session for the next week. And then in a week, run the preference test again. You may find that the animal who used to prefer chicken now prefers cheese, or vice versa. Or you may find that the animal still likes the same thing. But either way, you've given them an opportunity to take control and give you a little bit of information, and for you to listen and for you to then act accordingly. All of which is enriching, all of which will improve the life of the animals in your care. So again, thank you so much for joining us for this video. I hope you will also join us for the seminar. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have fun with the animals in your life. Bye.